you believe in souls meant to be? The day. A sunny day of the first vacation of the year in a crowded park where the dogs were barking at squirrels that were up and down the trees, and the kids were laughing and running around the park since their feet stepped on the grass, and the wind was blowing just enough to move Lisa's hair and make it messy. That day, her life wasn't going to be the same anymore. She went to that park that day without a reason, like being moved by an invisible force. While she was sitting in a park seat, with nothing left to do instead of looking around, she got immersed in her own thoughts without realizing who was coming next to her. Suddenly, an unknown voice was greeting her. So she turned around, looking where that voice came from, and she visualized a short girl with red cheeks and a really pretty dress. She was confused. She felt like knowing her, but she wasn't sure. And that girl was still standing there, waiting for her answer, leaning her head, confused. And quickly, Lisa said, "Hello," followed by a "Sorry." It seemed to be a nice girl. And somehow, they got into a really good conversation. They talked and talked and talked, while the wind whisper helped to keep out the noise of the people. The sun warmed their words, and their hearts set the pace of the conversation. Even when the kids were already called by their mom to go back home, and the dogs had already left alone the squirrels, they were still talking. The sun was setting, and they realized that it was getting late. So each one decided to go back home. But Lisa remembered that in the heat of the conversation, they didn't tell their names. Lisa turned around and shouted at her, "My name is Lisa!" And the girl also turned around and said, "Nice to meet you, Lisa." Lisa was confused. She was expecting to know her name too. So she tried again. "What's yours?" The other girl just turned around and continued her walk back home. Disappointed, Lisa also continued to walk back home. Maybe she didn't really hear me, thought Lisa. But was that possible? The days had been passing since then, and Lisa continued to go to that park to see if she could see that girl again, without luck. Was she ever going to be able to see that girl again? After a month of trying daily, she gave up. Maybe that girl moved out of the city, or didn't want to see her anymore. That's why she didn't give her a name. Or maybe something happened to her in her way back home, or that and more fake situations were around her head day and night. But why did that girl care so much for her? She had barely known her. They had been past 5 years since then, and Lisa was still aware everywhere she went, looking around if she saw her, and visiting places without a reason, trying luck like that day. But nothing. It was like if she vanished from Earth. It was strange even for Lisa. It was like if that same invisible force was moving her around, making her do things she didn't really want to, giving her troubles and more problems to care about, wasting her time. But most important, breaking her heart each time she tried to find her, and without results. She had enough, and she wasn't disposed anymore to live her life in a hope of finding that girl. Not anymore. She ran out of her house with all that feelings coming out of her eyes. It was raining outside, so she got lost in the middle of all the people running away from the rain. Somehow, she ended up in that park. And she finally broke into a deep cry, feeling how the thick rain was falling over her wet clothes, and feeling the cold that in a strange way made her feel warm inside. Suddenly, the rain stopped, but she can still hear the water falling around her. So she looked up and she saw an umbrella being held by a short girl with those cheeks that she remembered perfectly, and a nice voice saying, "Hi." All her tears stopped falling. Was that possible? Was that happening right now? After 5 years of looking for her, she came by herself. So, the only thing that Lisa could say at that moment was, "I'm Lisa." "I know," said she. "My name is Helen. You're hard to find."